Town Manager Brennan Duffy is on Zoom tonight, as is one of our listers, Pam Smith, I see. And also present are our treasurer and our town clerk. So with that, we can get started. Let's see. First item is the agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
And a second, please.
Second.
And we'll vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Emo?
Yes.
Stoller?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And next is the chair's report. There's not much to report. Just met with the town administrators and also online with the select board to set the agenda. So that's pretty much what happened this time. Are there public comments for number 3? For items not on the agenda? Okay, sure. Should we do Jan? Jan?
Yes, hi.
Luster?
Yes, thank
Hi.
you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very nicely.
All right. I just, you may remember that a couple of meetings ago, I spoke briefly about the issue of road safety and advocating for police priority on speeding. Since then, we've seen a number of different townspeople independently come forward with the same concerns and advocating for some change in police behavior, I guess you could say. I just have a process question to the town manager and the select board. Uh, how should townspeople go about uh, influencing, is this something where a group of townspeople should just go to the police chief? Should we go to the town manager because he's the police chief's boss? Is the select board a group that would weigh in on the priorities or the goals of the police department? So I put that out there because there have certainly been a number of people that clearly expressed the same concern. So thank you.
Okay. Brendan, would you like to respond?
I will try. Hi, Jan. So I think that the police chief has certainly heard the concern. Like the police chief is in tune with what people on the listserv might be stating about their concerns about speeding in certain areas. I know we have some temporary signs, and what he has done in the past is to try to verify the perception that there is excessive speeding going on in certain areas by placing those temporary signs for a couple weeks sometimes, and then going back and recording, the data is recorded about how fast cars are actually coming past those signs in that specific area of the roadway. And I've had several conversations with him about, is this really a problem? Is this a perception? And so I guess to answer, I don't have a great answer as to how you would influence that. I mean, if the town of Norwich would like the chief to really focus on writing tickets for speeding in town, I think that is possible. I think the police chief has not really heard that as a mandate of what the focus should be of the Norwich police. So he's, I think, aware that there are complaints in certain areas. He's researched to try to verify whether those complaints are validated by data. And I think it might make sense, as I speak, I'm thinking here, we could have a future agenda item, maybe once we've gotten through the budget, and the police chief could talk a little bit more directly to the board and the folks that are interested in hearing that about the strategy that he is employing or has employed for dealing with speeding on town roads.
That would certainly be appreciated, I think, to have it on a future agenda item.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if the select board is in agreement, then we can certainly look at that for a meeting in the early part of 2026 and just kind of have an open discussion about that topic.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be in support of that, and I'd really like to investigate whether we could have camera ticketing.
Pretty sure we can.
Can't or can't.
I think we cannot, but I'm not the police chief.
Okay, that could be a question if we have an agenda item now.
Yeah,
Do the rest of you think this is a good idea?
I support it. And
Yeah.
And I thank you, Jan, for raising the question, because I had a similar question in my mind.
Yes. And I've also noticed people popping up, including, not all who presented to us last week. So, yes, thank you. We'll try to do something about this. So at least to get a conversation started again about it. Thank you. All right. Other public comment? Cheryl, you wanna come up?
Cheryl Lindbergh. I just would like to urge the replacement of the bulletin board out in front of Tracy Hall. It's really in rough shape. It has been for many years. I've meant to come forward previously to bring this up, but we deserve better, and it's served its purpose. So I just would really like to urge us to get that replaced.
Okay.
I mean, the one on this.
That's
side
the
of road?
one over here in front of Tracy Hall's, building, that one.
Not the other one, the other.
Not the one across the road, no, the one that we own is Tracy Hall property, where we post all of the,
Notices.
notices of agendas and elections and all of that. It's really, the time has come. It's in very rough shape.
Could I suggest that along with that, perhaps we discuss how to turn that area into a more inviting, larger seating gathering? I mean, it's sort of a semi-gathering space with a couple of little benches.
Yeah.
And the sign, we have a new gas thing with a couple of stones around it. It just seems maybe it's worth looking at.
A little
Have
more than just the sign.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Keep that in mind.
always an architect.
Sign and spatial improvement. Okay, any other public comments? Seeing none. Let's see. Okay. Number 4 is listers' wages. Presentation by the Board of Listers. We received a memo. How should we couch this? Should we, do people have questions about the memo, like members, or questions or comments?
I thought the memo was very clear.
Okay.
I had some questions.
Matt, go ahead.
When I looked, let's see, some of these are kind of disconnected questions, but all things that I wrote down as I went through your what you submitted. And I wanted to begin by thanking you and your team of listers for, an incredibly heavy lift to get this thing done. And the amount of, we've all experienced times when we've begun a project and had no idea how much time you're actually, like, we think that we've allotted enough time to do the project, and then it just kind of balloons and balloons, and you can't in good faith walk away from it, so you're stuck doing what you need to do to get it done. And I appreciate that you all did that, and working on a small part of it through the Board of Civil Authority gave us more insight into sort of the professionalism that you have put towards this process. So my questions are more kind of specific questions. You referenced in, I guess, one of the suggestions about kind of remedying the 2020, or talking about the 2025 budget. It looked like there was $16,000 underspent in contract services. And I was, because you had brought that up, I was wondering why that was underspent. because the suggestion was kind of like tap into that or consider tapping into that or so why was it underspent?
And are you addressing this
Oh,
to
sorry.
Cheryl or to Pam?
Uh,
Pam is online, Cheryl's here.
I'm
Would you like to
here.
represent the listers?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. So during the time of the reappraisal, we did not feel the need to have an additional professional individual in the office. We had what we believed to be the reappraisal firm who do appraisals of all types of things, and we're under contract to complete all of the assessments that needed to be done for the reappraisal. So anytime there was any questions over this past 2 years, they were the source. There was no need to duplicate that and bring on another individual or assessor, whatever you want to call them, to supplement that. It was just not needed.
and KRT is what you're talking about.
Yeah, KRT was our go-to professional firm.
All right. And then also in your note, you mentioned that KRT, that the listers had to go out and do a lot of the grievance inspections because KRT refused to do that. And so you occurred a lot more time. And I was curious whether KRT was contracted to do that and just refused, or if that just wasn't in their contract.
So the contract stated that they would defend all values through the grievance process and to any appeals to the BCA. As part of the grievance process, if a property has not been inspected, the listers are reluctant to make a decision without an inspection. During the reappraisal work, if KRT had gone to a property and they were grieving and that we had that information, then that was different. But there were many times where they didn't get to a property, didn't get inside of a house. So in order to really be fair to the person, to the property owner grieving and or the rest of the people in town, we felt it was important that KRT see yet another and be a part of those inspections. So their eyes were on all the properties in town as best as we could do. They chose the position that they're not required for a grievance, unlike the BCA's requirement by statute to have an inspection. So they stepped aside from inspecting any properties that they had not been to during the reappraisal that we felt was important to visit and see in that process. So that, I think, can answer what you're asking. It meant that sometimes the person, the property owners grieving, asked us to come and do an inspection. They wanted us to, and we were not going to deny somebody that request. So that was done. And then other time, it was felt by, with the significance of the grievance request, that it was important for us to see the interior of the structure and go to the property and look at the outbuildings and all. So those were calls made during that grievance process. And they did not attend any of the inspections during the BCA process either.
Right.
So.
And then there's in your suggestions that you outlined on sort of how to, one way to remedy this payroll issue is a distribution from the reappraisal fund to cover certain parts. And when I looked back, it seems like that fund could, has plenty in it to make that distribution. That's correct, right?
Yes, we did chat on email with the finance director to make sure we had our numbers accurate for the reappraisal fund and what we project going forward. And so, yes, I can give you a very back of the envelope calculation of what I've come up with for the projected reappraisal fund going out the 6 years we will go before we do another reappraisal, unless our numbers, fall to a point where the state will mandate another reappraisal sooner than 6 years from now. So if you go out to 3031 and we are able to continue to allocate the 40,000, then there would be, here it is, there would be $266,915 without any interest added or anything like that, at the point of 2031.
Okay.
If we continued the $40,000.
And your suggestion to, going through this, the using $26,170 from the current, from what's currently in the fund would be.
Yeah, the fund balance right now is 102,584. If this were to be deducted and hopefully the reappraisal is approved by the state, we owe 9,500 more to KRT, but we have to wait for the state to give us that notification of approval. That would take it to 66,915 as of the end of this fiscal year, and then 40,000 a year, if that is the projection amount, would bring it back up to the 266,915. Okay, and that's.
Those are the questions that I had when I went through, this.
Thank you. Other questions? I have a question. It's for the hourly rate of compensation. What is it based on? We've got, step 16, 3383 and step E for, that's for you, and then step E for Pam and Ernie. How do you, what is it compared to? You do it on a comparable rate or what?
So we moved the listers to the same grade as the other elected official. I think that was part of our previous discussion, right? Then we went to the
town clerks.
Yes,
I see.
yeah, and then the steps were determined by when we got the approval from the article in the August 24 town meeting. We went to the step and grade, and
Grade.
we worked from there,
Yeah.
looking to see who had certain amount of experience and whose chair, and those were some of the considerations used in making a determination of which step to pick.
I see. Did you compare to lister wages statewide or to assessor wages or anything like that?
Well, you can do that with the wage and benefits report that comes out each year. It is very much all over the board, if you will. The information isn't always accurate. In looking through it, I noticed that even the Norwich information is inaccurate, reflecting the numbers in those wage and benefits survey that is sent out. So I've got feedback to give to the town on making sure that's correct in the next time around. But I would say we're in a ballpark of where we should be with a number of years of experience and being a lister. I would say it fits into the.
Okay, and just what would be the comparison to an assessor? Like, because you have had tons of experience, right? But there's some difference between, I think, a lister and assessor, or are you approaching that with the education experience that you have?
There's very little that I don't know at this point compared and with the number of years, really, with what you would call an assessor. Assessors are not elected individuals unless they do it for their town. They can be elected lister for their town, and are typically trained with additional areas that may come in handy with a commercial building for example, or some larger complex. We aren't faced with that too much. We have, things like Great River Hydro, and we have, the
Commercial.
complex down on Route 5 and, the Norwich Inn. But at the end of the day, during the grievance process, the listers handled both of those areas in this town. We handled the Norwich Inn grievance. We handled the grievance down on Route 5 with the fogs in all of that area without additional support from KRT. And where we were successful, we felt, in getting that assessment in line accurately. The fact of the matter is that there are 3 software packages that need to be managed. And one is that CAMA software with AssessPro. One is the NEMRIC software with the grand list where the tax bills come out from. And the third is the Vermont Pi software, which is in many people's minds that work with it, a very cumbersome addition to the workload of the listers and an assessor as well. None of that is beyond our capability. We are more than capable of doing the work that needs to be done in each of those software packages to get to a grand list each year. And we've done that, each year. I'm not sure if I'm getting back to your initial question, but our, and now statutorily, beginning January 1st, we will be required to have training of 48 hours to continue to serve as a lister. You have 1 year to complete that. Much of that is education that we've all received previously, but they're now going to track it.
It's almost like not a certification, but more closely tracked is what you're
Yes,
saying.
and there will be a need to maintain that training information and provide it in order to have your certification
Right.
as the lister 1 or whatever they're calling it. I forget the name right off the top of my head, but yes, there is that coming up in January. And
Are there other levels too? Like
there are additional levels that you can aspire to.
Okay. Thank you. I'm noticing that Pam
Oh, yeah, I'm sure Pam has.
her hand up.
Sure.
Pam, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, I would. Thank you. One thing I would like to point out is that when we had an assessor, the last one, it was, I think, $75 an hour to compensate. Is that the correct rate, Cheryl? 75, 74, something like that?
I think it went up to 80, but yes.
Okay, and so we're thinking that a professional assessor would probably come in at $75 to $100 an hour and probably wouldn't have too many skills beyond what we already have and will have when we complete this Assessor 1 level training. And we're doing it for far less than we would be paying somebody who would come in and not really know Norwich like we know Norwich. And so we think that where we are wage-wise is probably pretty fair. So that's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Timo, did you want to weigh in?
No, I think I understand.
Okay.
I mean, it's been complicated.
It is
Well, I did have one question, I suppose.
Yep.
Is the additional training that you will be required to do, at least in part, due to the difficulty that towns in Vermont have had in finding professional assessors? So in other words, to take over more of the responsibilities for evaluating properties, because it's hard to find professional groups who will do it.
Right.
Is that part of why this is being, or?
So I can tell you from being at meetings and such trainings that listers feel very diminished by the fact that exactly what you're saying. We develop all these skills over some for 20, 30 years and are paid poorly and yet do all the work needed to get the grand list ready. But an assessor can demand a $75 to $100 an hour rate. And they're really not that much more knowledgeable than we are. So, or that the listers are throughout the state of Vermont. And so it brings some credibility to the listers and allows them to substantiate what they believe they're worth to their town. And, you know, it will give hopefully more inspiration to listers to stay with it and new people to be a lister. Because 48 hours isn't a lot, but it will be very important and helpful in doing what's needed to be done. And so I think it will kind of level the playing field a bit for the listers piece to this process of education and certification.
I have another question. It's about Act 73 and what will the future trajectory be for listers? You know, I get the impression that eventually the state might go to a county-wide reassessment. And it's not clear to me how local listers will fit into that. I mean, I think that probably the logic of it is to have a larger amount of land or properties to assess, you know, for reappraisal, you know, that you could get a firm that would cover equivalent of all of Windsor County or something like that. But how do listers fit into that? Like they still would maintain all the local annual reassessments, or would that change in some way? And you might not know because
I don't know.
I've invented it yet.
I don't know all of it, but I know that there is always with the state a portion of the work that comes back to the town. And it is, from the discussions I recall, they will want the listers to handle grievances, even though the listers didn't determine the assessments.
Okay, then.
So that will be that's an interesting piece to
Yes.
something like that.
Right.
You know, it's just like, you know, similar to education tax, you know, they're going to take
Right.
charge of it, but they want the towns to collect it.
Right.
You know, so it complicates and pushes back some of the work. Do I think that could evolve differently over time once they experience the pushback from local listers as to how much sense does that make? We didn't
Right.
set the assessment, but you're asking us to defend it.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
So that's a work in progress.
it is. It is.
All right, Matt?
I had two more questions. What was the previous hourly rate, like pre-raise, or however you want to bring it?
That's a question. I don't know if I'm prepared. Pam, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, it was, I think 27 something at step E and 28 something at step G. I could bring up a different spreadsheet here if I had a moment to dig it out. But I know that we were in the $27, $28 range.
No benefits.
Right. To that point, yes, no benefits and no planned growth, you know, within our step and grade process. There was no set methodology for going up anywhere, you know, in the next step over if you were another year. But the COLA certainly would be applied to all of the step and grade. So that benefit is there when the rates change based on that.
If I could,
Matt?
Madam Chair,
Sure.
I wanted to answer Kimo's question about the training.
About the- Okay.
The state has decided that listers should have kind of a minimum level of training. So it kind of standardizes their ability to do this job. So they set up these 4 levels, and level 1 is the one that we're required to do within the first year of the being a lister, or the first year of this being enacted. So that standardize that. And to Mary's question about Act 73, the state doesn't really know what they're doing. They don't know how this is going to play out. They're kind of feeling their way along. They were talking about, well, the problem is we don't have enough reappraisal firms to cover the state and get these reappraisals done. So maybe we need a different system where we do them in groups like countywide or, you know, some kind of regional plan. So they're just feeling their way along and they have no idea where this is going to go and how it's all going to shake out. It's going to be kind of organic.
Okay, work in progress. And
Yes.
Matt,
My last question is, how many lister positions are open right now? Or are there? Like,
So there-
you have 3 listers.
Yes, so there's one person that will fill the final year of a 3-year term this time around, and then there are 2 positions opening up. My term for a new 3-year term and the unexpired term that Pam was appointed to for Jonathan Vincent's. When he passed, there was a vacancy for a while and then Pam got appointed. So there's a 2-year and a 3-year open in March.
Okay, and there's 3 lister positions.
Total.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yep.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure that there was not like 4 listers and you just had trouble filling the 4th.
No, just 3.
Marcia?
So unfortunately, we keep talking about this as though you were an employee, you're an elected official. And we don't have any jurisdiction to negotiate over and above what the voters have approved for compensation. You were doing this job for $4,500 a year for 3 people. And this has been a dramatic increase. I mean, I think this board works for $250 because it is service. It is not a job.
500. Yeah.
500, right?
250 twice. And so I think we don't have the jurisdiction to be making this, making a decision other than to say, if you want more compensation, then it can go on the March warrant. And that way the voters will know that you think you're underpaid and they'll know what you want to be paid for last year and for the coming year. And it'll be transparent and it'll be within the jurisdiction that's allowed by statute and case law.
All right, so that's a suggested action when we sort out the warrant. If you
And can I
consider
just-
that?
One more
Right.
thing.
Yep.
If anybody wants to read it, the Vermont Lister and Assessor Certification published by the Vermont Department of Taxes explains what the requirements are now for the assessor, the lister certification. They call it Assessor 1, and then what the assessor certification requirements are. And if you look at the statute, there were no requirements before January 1, 2026 for listers. There will now be. I think that's an important distinction because this has been, I think we're the only state in the union I've read that has a lister model. And I would think it's going to go the way of the dodo bird. But for now, this is what we've got. And for now, the voters are the people in charge of deciding what the compensation is for all elected officials.
Okay.
So I'm respectful of what you're saying, very much so. But when I asked Carl Andier, the staff attorney, about this, what I included in here, he claims that the select board has the budget discretion to supplement additional paid hours. I mean, I assume you've read this. How do you square those two?
I think it's a different thing. We could decide that we wanted to give bonuses and put it in the budget to be voted for lots of people in town. I think, you know, we do have the purse strings, but we are also constrained by Dylan's rule to stay within the guardrails. And the other attorney didn't speak inconsistently, but he explained the guardrails.
Okay, the other attorney's unnamed, so there was no way I could, have that kind of conversation. It was just non-identified attorney.
Well, I'm sure you could find him if you wanted to, but I'm not gonna what are you gonna do?
Well, if it, for example, was the same attorney, then.
It's not the
That would be odd.
It's not the
You can see what I asked them. Is there a difference between what you can do with a lister who is getting a stipend versus a lister who's being paid hourly? And my pretty strong impression here is that an hourly compensation can be treated differently than a
Person with a stipend.
yeah, that's what I take from the reading of it. I mean, it seems very clear and simple to me. So, I'm trying to think, what's the best thing for Norwich here? And it seems to me the best thing for Norwich is to pay the people who've done an outstanding job and have finished the job, who've taken on extra work that could reasonably have been expected to be done by
Charity.
And just agree to pay them reasonably and move on to better things. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money. We have the money. I don't think anybody's arguing that the money's not there to pay them. And if that's good for Norwich, it seems to me that's probably what we should try to do.
Why is it good for Norwich? For the voters to be asked by the listers or anybody else for a certain amount of money, get it voted, and then to have those people come back to the select board and say, I want more money. All I'm saying is this went to the voters in the first instance. It should go to the voters. Nothing's stopping it from going on the March ballot, which is right around the corner.
Well, we have had no public response. This has been in the
Well,
in conversation for a little bit now. There's
Right.
not been a single member of the public who's objected.
voting is a public response.
Yeah, all I'm saying is typically if it's something that people really feel strongly about, they
Like
show up.
dogs.
Yeah, like dogs, right?
Okay.
It may take a little bit.
Right. Okay, well, let's hear from Priscilla and then Matt again. Go ahead, Priscilla.
I think we're getting into unnecessary weeds on this. I think it would be good for Norwich in that if you want anybody to be a lister, we need to treat them properly. The listers are not going to go outside of their overall budget. They've assured us of that. And I don't think we do adjust things within departmental lines. I think what the townspeople care about is what's the bottom line? And if you want to get finer about what's the bottom line per department, but even sometimes in departments, we have to go over that. And we might look back to when Bonnie Monday retired as town clerk, and she had a lot of accrued vacation time. And it was decided that she should be paid for that because she deserved it. That was the right thing to do. That was not in the budget, but that's what we did. And a bunch of us sitting here were on that board that approved that. And this isn't even asking to go beyond the budget, what's in the total budget. This is just saying, let's do right by these people who've done this good work, and they're not going outside the amount for their department that was voted by the townspeople.
Okay. And Matt, did you have a further comment?
I just wanted to go back to, because Marcia's memo that was from November 6th, which was in our last meeting packet. And in it, you wrote that the VLCT staff attorney on October 28th, wrote in response to some questions that you asked, I think, and said quote, Barnes is pretty clear that elected officials are only required to be compensated for the amount approved by the voters. This applies to all elected officials, not only the listers. And this is the part that sticks with me. He or she goes on to say, that said, if there are funds in the budget that could be reasonably reallocated to the lister, the select board has the authority to do so, but would not be required. So the way I'm reading this is that we have that we can do it, and we're kind of debating, should we do it? Or because we, like Priscilla said, we want to work with the listers, for the current listers who have put in an incredible amount of time, for maybe future listers out there that are considering stepping into these positions. And we obviously have a responsibility to the taxpayers to use their money frugally and appropriately. But I'm still reading all of this, that we have the authority to make I don't know, special exceptions, or to find, as long as it's in their budget being the total budget, that we can do it, and whether we should do it is really what we're talking.
I can respond to that.
Yeah.
Marcia, go ahead.
I think there's lots of times you'll find in law where there's things that look like they might be inconsistent or parallel, right? And I think what you have to keep in mind is we can do a lot of things. Should we do them? The law about listers and elected officials is clear. But within the bigger realm, we hold the purse strings. So that guy's saying, yeah, you could do this. But Barnes still controls, and the statute still controls. So I think, it is potentially up to us. And I think the up to us could be, we're not going to say no, we're going to put it on the warrant for March. Let the voters decide. The money's there.
So I see us as having three choices, and I don't really want to make any of them tonight. But one is to do absolutely nothing, which I think would be terrible. Just freeze everything so that listers are working on a volunteer basis, which I don't think is fair. Or we could decide whether we're comfortable with the reallocation from the, because it's the assessment fund moving forward to, fill the gap. And also, are we comfortable with the level of compensation? Are we comfortable with these things to make that decision? Or are we more comfortable, passing this decision on to the voters? I see it as that we could decide, we could do nothing, or we could put it on the warrant for the voters who may or may not be interested, as you said, or informed. That's the other thing about bringing out a piece of the financials for the town. If they have not been following it, it may or may not be productive to do that. But I do think we have those three choices. And I don't think we should make those decisions tonight, because also I think we need to get further down our budget process and get more of a feeling for the entire budget, which is another thing that we have to do tonight. So that's my personal take on it. So Chemo and then Priscilla.
Yeah, so thinking ahead, if you were to put this in front of the voters for approval, would the listers not be paid until that passed or didn't pass? Or would they?
Probably not. They probably would not be until it passed, which is.
Well, probably not till July 1st, because that would be the
Not
next
till July
budget.
1st, actually, because it would have to be approved. And then the fiscal year would have to start. So that's a lot for people who still have work to do, ongoing work.
But they're not employees.
I know that they're not. I'm
yeah.
just saying that would be, maybe they'd get sick of it.
And if we do nothing, do they also not get paid?
Yeah, those are the two not being paid until July 1st, because I assume that their proposal for the next fiscal year, I assume probably will pass along with the rest of the budget, unless the town is very angry about the entire budget and votes that down. So that's pretty well insured, as long
So,
as we do our diligence.
I'm sorry, you had your hand raised.
Well, you finished?
Yeah, are you done?
I had one more question. So,
Okay.
there's no reason we can't have two motions, for example, right? To,
Which would be,
to
or two,
schedule, this to be approved by voters. And then also move that the listers be paid.
no, I think we would either take our own authority to, sort of honor their proposal. We'd either exercise our own authority or we would have the voters exercise their authority. It's either us or them. I know, it's,
Um,
want to think about that for a minute?
I'd like to follow the law.
Okay, well, we do need to follow the law. Priscilla?
We have the money in the current budget to pay them for the work they've already done. I agree with Matt. I think we have the authority to do what's the right thing for them and pay them for the work they've done. And I am prepared to make motions to that effect if you want to hear them or not. I don't know. Maybe.
I'd like to hear
Marcia?
if Brennan has something to add, because
Okay, let's, hang on a minute, Cheryl.
Brennan,
Are you still there, Brennan? Stepped away.
Yep,
there
I'm
he is.
here.
And do you wanna,
So I guess the first thing I would say is that when we put this on the agenda, it was discussion only for tonight. So I don't think you could make a motion tonight, Priscilla. I think this should be put back onto a future agenda with a possible motion, just to be clear. I guess,
it's on-
provides
it's on
for
the
this,
motion
and it
sheet.
also says possible motion on the agenda, I think.
No,
No, it doesn't. Oh,
I think.
but it's on the.
it's inconsistent because the,
Whatever.
the agenda says discussion and the motion, it does provide for a motion.
Yeah, I think I would favor the more conservative. If it's not on the agenda, it probably should not be moved tonight. I think that the thought there was that this was going to be presented and then people would have a chance to think about it, and then it could come back either at the next meeting next week or at a future meeting, and a vote could be taken. So that was my understanding from the discussion that was going back and forth about agenda setting for this one. The other piece I wanted just to mention, the reappraisal fund. We also have two cases that have now gone or been appealed to the Superior Court, and we have our town legal firm, SBNF attorneys, defending the town there. I don't believe there was really any further thought about how that piece would be paid for. So we have a legal line item in our general budget and the administration side, and then we have the reappraisal fund that I think would be directly applicable to paying a legal cost to defend the reappraisal. So I just wanted to point that out. I don't think we have to make any decision about that tonight, but those are the two potential sources for paying for the defense of those appeals, and we have two at this point. I don't know if that will increase or not before the deadline. And I guess, for tonight, I don't really have a whole lot of other comment. I've been kind of listening to this. I think, I think generally it's a difficult position because really the work that happened at the end of the fiscal year 25 and through the first month or 2 months of fiscal year 26 has certainly exceeded the amount that was budgeted for the entire year. And I had made a couple comments working with or trying to work with the listers back in May. I think May 28th, there's correspondence in the board packet for that, where I was trying to encourage the listers to get as much done as they could in June and speed up that schedule so that we didn't have as much work to do in July. And at that point, it had nothing to do with the wages or whether the listers were going to overrun their budget in the first quarter. It was more, are we still, is it still possible to get the tax bills out on time so we could meet that deadline that had been set? So that's there if anyone wants to take a look at that. And then there was some other discussion about the wages that were increased for the beginning of this fiscal year. So those went up 20%, I think, from the original wages that were set that Pam mentioned were in the $27, $28 range. So that, I think, also impacted the amount of hours that the listers would have in the coming year to do the work that they were trying to do. And then I think the other compounding factor was that some of the work that had been given, KRT had a contract with the town to do certain things, mailings, various tasks that were taken on by the listers. And I think there were reasons for that they didn't feel KRT was doing a job the way they wanted it to be done, and they wanted it to do it themselves. But that also played a contributing role, I think, to where all of those hours became necessary, billed by the listers to do the work. And again, had KRT done the work under their contract, that would not be an expense we'd be incurring right now. So I guess that's kind of my comment for the evening.
Okay, let's try to, I think, wrap this up. Priscilla, did you have a last comment here?
Yeah, I think it's really unfair to imply in any way that the listers did not push forward as hard as they could to get all this work done as fast as they could. They did not wish to spend their summer, where they might have had other plans, working flat out the way that they did. And if you want to say KRT didn't do some of the things maybe it should have done, I believe the town manager was in charge of managing the contract with KRT.
Well, I don't know about that. That's,
I think that's an inappropriate discussion
Yeah.
in public.
The contract
There's a lot
KRT.
inappropriate about this whole thing.
was clearly in the hands of the town manager. We were told that all along. And I remember when Roger was on the board and there were some issues, Roger said, please manage that contract so we can get this, keep it moving forward, which was the disappointment of all of us that we were pulling them through the reappraisal instead of them performing the reappraisal. We didn't want all of this delay to occur. This was not our doings, but you have to get it done. There is no other choice. I do have a couple quick comments. The select board took the authority that's been mentioned in the packet to pay an elected official back when the town clerk's line item was a set amount, and the select board voted to do the right thing and to authorize the overpayment of a wage line item for an elected official of this town. I wouldn't disagree with it either. I think you do the right thing when you do that. Secondly, so there is precedence for this. This is not the first time it's been requested. Secondly, from reading the statute on lister wages or town manager wages or select board wages or any of those things that can evolve from the statute, you can have a warning on the town. You can have an article on the warning for every wage line item. We can petition to put a town manager wage limit on our town manager position. We can petition.
yeah, I think you've made a point.
Right.
Yes.
So my point is, there was no petition. There was no separate article in the last town warning to pay the listers a maximum amount. It was a budget that was a plan that we believed 6 months earlier would be the right thing.
Fine, yeah,
It was way
I think
before.
we understand that.
Okay, well, so I'm trying to remind you of the things that complicated it.
Oh.
And the third thing is, during the open meeting law webinar today by VLCT, the question was asked about motions being on the agenda, and they recommended not doing that, so that you're not restricting yourself, not you personally, any agenda. So it was an open meeting law webinar. And they said to individuals attending, there was 120 people on it, don't complicate your agendas by saying you're going to have a motion or not have a motion. You don't need that
Thank
to
you.
come.
Thank you.
Meeting law.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, yep. Well, our town clerk wants to weigh in.
I'm real sorry to muddy the waters further, chemo, but there have been.
Can you step up, please?
Lily Tremin, Town Clerk. There have been instances where things have been on the ballot that have requested allocation of monies in that fiscal year immediately effective after the vote in March.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Pam, do you have a very brief comment? Would like to wrap this up? Or
Yeah,
is
I
your
just,
hand-
yes, I just wanted to reiterate what Cheryl was saying, and that is that, you know, the town votes a total budget. We don't vote line items. And if you look at the statute that's been cited here, 24 VSA 932, it says a town may vote to compensate any or all town officers for their official services. Such town, an annual meeting may fix the compensation of such officers and of town employees. So if we were to follow the letter of the law, and then no town employees should be paid more than what is in the budget for their position. And I think we all know that that's happened many, many times. And it says may fix, doesn't say shall, it says may. And since there was no specific article saying this is the amount of money that is set aside for the lister's compensation and they cannot exceed that, I don't think that you are constrained in the way that was presented. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. All right, I think we should move on. We thought, no, really, really short,
Yeah,
okay?
it is
Because
short.
we're just going in circles here.
I agree. But last meeting, I had hoped to make a motion, and it was asked if I would like to make that motion next time. I said yes. I would have modified our agenda, except that I saw that the motion was already listed. So had I not seen that the motion was listed, I would have asked to have the motion added. It's too late to do that. I understand that, but I feel a little bit like,
Okay, so you're feeling the process is shaky, is what you're saying.
well, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
here it
You're
is.
still learning the process. You'll catch on.
Well, it is a complicated one. So I think we could benefit from moving on from this one tonight. Okay, it's not, you know. I think we will deal with it. Okay, let's move on to number 5, a presentation by our town clerk.
It was printed very small.
I'm sorry, Lily, I'm seeing Brennan's hand up. Brennan, did you want to say
So,
something?
yeah, I don't know. I think Marcia has volunteered to once again kind of co-host and show the screenshots. Before we jumped
Okay.
into the clerk and the listers, I actually thought we would maybe have a couple minutes just to talk a little bit about the budget in general and kind of where we are right
Okay,
now.
oh, it's shaping up.
Is that
Okay.
okay
Lily.
to have it about maybe 15 minutes there?
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Okay.
That's
Do
okay.
you want to share? You want to share now?
No, I don't think we have anything to share until Lily gets up and talks about her budget specifically, but just generally. So Barry is with us tonight, and I'd like to give her maybe 10 minutes or so just to talk through a couple of the things that were in the packet that folks, I hope, got a chance to at least look at. You'll notice in the current draft of the budget, we were able to add the fiscal year 24 numbers, so people have some historic background there. We also have the fiscal year 25 with the pre-audit numbers that have at least been reviewed by the auditor. So those may change a little bit still. I expect they probably will before the final audit is completed and we have our report and we can lock those in. But I think it is important to talk a little bit about that early in the proceedings, and I think again, Barry has also put a cover together that was explaining a couple of the changes that you're going to see in the current budget for fiscal year 27 that we've been working on. So those are a couple things to talk about. I also, maybe we can make a decision about this at the end of the meeting when we set the agenda for next week. But I just wanted to try to get a handle on our schedule for kind of completing the budget process. And we, I think at this point, have this meeting where you'll be able to hear from the last two departments, and then the select board will have heard from all of the departments about their specific budgets. I think we might want to talk a little bit about, are there immediate thoughts or changes that we would want to bring in to the meeting next week, because it's going to be a very short turnaround. So if there were any consensus changes that would be ready for tonight, that would be helpful to know. If not, we can come back just with the draft kind of as it stands for the 17th, and then have a full discussion about, what you've heard, any changes or suggestions that the select board would like to have before this gets kind of put into a final draft. And then I was looking at.
I have a question.
Sure.
Slow down a little bit, Brennan.
Yep.
So, we need to have the full audit before we wrap up our discussion on the 17th. And when would that be ready?
So I do
We
not
need the
have a
figures.
definitive date on when we'll have our completed audit. My suspicion is that it will be here before the first of the year. I doubt it will be here before we meet next week.
Okay, so do we need a little wiggle room? Is there anything sort of pending
Well-
that might change our structure of our budget, or?
I think that the audit is going to be looking at the fiscal year 25. So that's, it's interesting to
Okay.
see that, and it's important. It's not going to have a direct effect on the
On
budget that
this
we're
year's
talking about for
presentation?
27.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
And so I was going to say, looking at January, so we have a regular meeting on the 14th of January. The next
Right.
regular meeting is the 28th of January.
28th or, oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, the 28th.
Well,
So,
it's late.
and then working backwards on when we need to have warrants, kind of final warrants approved, that looks like that would be the 21st. So there may be a special meeting needed on the 21st to accomplish that, or to finalize the budget at the same time. There's also the first week of January, the Wednesday would be January 7th. So again, I don't think we have to immediately say we need to have a special meeting. We could set that up next week after we see where we are. But I just think we should be aware that those are, I think the 21st is kind of the deadline we need to have for the
Right.
budget and the warrants to be completed, and so that they can go to the town clerk and we can proceed.
Okay, good to keep those dates in mind.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so with that, if Barry is available, I'd like to give her the floor and just let her talk through kind of what you're looking at in the current draft.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Barry.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about kind of things in isolation a little bit, so that we can just focus on one topic at a time. There's been question about the fiscal year 25 data, now that you can see the reviewed information in front of you, and the year ends with a deficit. And a deficit simply means that the revenues for the year were less than the expenses. It's kind of that simple. And the biggest contributing factors, this is not a dollar for dollar comparison, but the biggest contributing factor has to do with the decision that was made last year to reduce the amount of property tax that would be collected by $700,000, and surplus monies from a prior year would be used to balance the budget. So that $700,000 wasn't revenue. So you kind of started the year with $700,000 less in revenue. The opioid revenue that we moved was 15,000, 15 to 20 to, excuse me, to be exact. So that further reduced the revenue. And then there was a CD, 2 CDs that closed that had interest that went into the general fund that hadn't gone into the general fund prior. They were continuously reinvested in the CD. And the practice of the town has been to allocate bank interest to your special funds, your designated funds, your special funds, you know, all those numbers 4 through 56. So a portion of that money was from prior years. So it's not like you had revenue and expense to offset it. It was money from that was already recorded as revenue in a prior year. So when it transferred to the funds, it comes out as an expense. So that those numbers are bigger numbers, and it kind of makes up the deficit for the year. It's not, you know, there's other contributing factors, but those are the largest ones. And it's not because the budget, you know, the department heads overspent their budgets. I mean, it's not, when you look through that, you can see where revenue is less and more than what was budgeted. And you can look through expenses and see, you know, the line items where the expense was more than what was budgeted and where the expense was less than what was budgeted. But what the strong contributing factors to the deficit really started with that $700,000. And I know that there's been concern that when there's a deficit, that you have to, you know, build that into future tax bills. And it's only if it's a deficit for the whole fund balance. The town of Norwich doesn't have that. They have a deficit only for the year. They still have a positive fund balance. So there isn't anything that you have to charge on a tax bill to offset that loss. And that is 24 VSA 1523A is the statute that talks about that. And if it might help you to be able to understand how that shows, when you look in the packet and you look on the balance sheet, which I believe is page 82 of the packet, when you look all the way down at the bottom, it'll show you fund balance. And then it has a line that says current year fund balance. That's where your deficit or surplus shows. So that's where you can see, you know, that's the status of how the town is doing between revenues and expenses. And I did try to talk a little bit about fund balance and what that means in the financial overview for the October financial. So I hope that helps to explain it and alleviate any concern that we have to charge a 5 or 15, you know, 5, 10 or 15% on future bills to rectify the deficit, because we don't have to do that because we still have a positive fund balance. Does that make sense to people?
Yes.
Or do you have any questions?
Questions?
Basic question. I do have a question. Let me get to it. I had highlighted it. First of all, thank you for explaining that. It's helpful. The HRA reimbursement expenditures, I know this is a minor question, but just what is HRA? Health?
It's a health reimbursement account.
Okay.
So that came out of the union contract when the union contract was fully executed. Employees, depending on what health plan they chose, they might receive a health savings account, they might get health reimbursement, or neither. It depends on what their choice was.
Okay.
Cheryl, do you have a question? Do you want to?
Just a supplement, there's an expense related to that for the town then, Mary, right?
Cheryl,
I'm
do you want
sorry,
to
can
come up? Hang on a minute, Mary.
Yeah,
I'll get Cheryl to come up and ask it.
My quick question was, so there's an expense related to that the town pays
The
for the
HRA?
HRAs?
Yes. Yes. It's a
Wasn't
benefit.
Right, it's in the, and we see it in the reports in this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for Barry?
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the
Other
next
section?
topic. So there was some questions about the opioid settlement money. You know, we were talking about the fiscal year 24 money that's kind of sitting in surplus right now. We talked to VLCT about that, you know, because we knew the decision was made because the audit wasn't final. We could take the money that was in 25 and move it over to the opioid, to the fund. I think it's 56, which has been done, and then reclass the money that came in so far this year in fiscal year 26 and have done the same thing. But then there was money that was received back in 24. So we asked VLCT what we needed to do to be able to move that. And I'll read to you their response. It says, you can create the opioid settlement special revenue fund as an accounting action, and it does not require voter approval. It is technically restricted at a higher level than the voter's authority. So what that says to me is that we can take that money from fiscal year 24 and move it to that fund without having to go to the voters and ask for permission.
Okay. Matt, do you have a question?
I just had one question on that, and I was wondering if this came up with our auditors. I know VLCT kind of blessed this. Did you bring this up with our auditor just to see whether they would be okay with that as well?
We didn't ask them about fiscal year 24. I didn't ask them about fiscal year 24. But they're aware because in fiscal year 25, an entry had to be made. So.
Right, that's how we moved it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I see a question from Tricia Spellman.
Hi, thank you. Just a couple questions about, sorry, I didn't raise my hand fast enough in the, the last section. The 700,000, so I think I saw it as revenue on in the budget. And I'm just wondering how it's showing up in the actuals, the 700,000. Is it a transfer from prior years to current year or something? And second question.
No.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, I'll answer the first one first.
Okay.
It was put in the budget as an infusion, a surplus infusion, I think was the word that was used to demonstrate a balanced budget. I believe I didn't personally do that, so I'm assuming that's why it was done that way. It was money that was surplus money that was used. So the surplus money sits in the fund balance, so you don't transfer that because it'll work itself out, because that current year fund balance that shows on your balance sheet, what that number represents is the difference between revenue and expenses.
Yep. Okay, that's helpful. Second question is, you talked about the CDs being closed and deposited. So is the policy that you're sending that interest to the various funds based on what, like allocation?
Percentage of the
based on-
whole.
Okay, and
Percentage of the whole.
they get the total amount that was provided. It's not some not some
All
percentage
earned
of that.
interest,
Okay.
whether it's from a CD or if it's from the bank accounts, the general fund bank account.
And that's a town policy that you do that?
That's the precedent that's been set, the practice that's been set.
Okay,
I don't know for how many years that's happened, but that's what that money's been used for.
that's helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions on that section?
We okay with I'm sorry, Cheryl is gonna come up and ask.
One last question, not necessarily to Barry, but I recall the opioid fund money coming in and being a prior year discussion at the select board level, and it was decided not to do anything about it. And to separate it out and let it just fall into the bottom line. It surprises me now that it's getting handled as a special revenue, because it seemed like it was something that should be separately accounted for back then. And I'm surprised the auditor, maybe because it wasn't material to the overall financials, didn't address it in the audit. I don't know. We could ask them in the next time they're meeting with you. That might be a great question to come forward with.
Thank you.
I can respond to that because we did ask the auditors at that time. And the response, I don't want to speak for them, but this is my recollection, was that what they had witnessed or experienced is that most towns were just keeping it in their general fund. So they didn't tell us we had to set up a special revenue or that they thought we should.
Thank
So
you.
then,
Any other questions about the opioid section? Oh, go ahead, Barry.
Okay, so the last piece is about the budget to actual, and I did try to do a draft budget summary that hopefully helped explain some things. Much of it's already been talked about, but the expense part was just something I wanted to try to articulate, because it felt like it's hard to compare apples to apples, if you will, when there's things in the expenditures that affect that bottom line. And so I tried to spell that out. So if we look at that column, the fiscal year 25 actual reviewed dollar amount, that money, it shows that there's an 11. I'm looking on page 15. Yeah. So when it looks at the comparison of, the expenses over budget, it shows that it's 11.31% increase. But there's a couple things that I think need to be considered from a perspective point of view. Is that $439,472 of expenses were FEMA expenses. Everyone knew we were going to have FEMA expenses, but it wasn't in the budget. It wasn't in the budget for revenue, and it wasn't in the budget for expenses. So in just looking at the expenditure budget, if you were to remove that, just to say, to show you, kind of an apples to apples comparison, it brings that increase down to 4.91%. And then the other piece is that interest that I was just talking about, because that's revenue from a prior year. And I don't think anyone could have predicted that, we would be closing those CDs and that this infusion of interest would go into the general fund. So if you removed that expense, then it brings it down to 2.04%. And then there's other things like the child care contribution tax was new. It came about after the budget had already been built, I believe. The HRA, health reimbursement, is also something else that wasn't in the budget. So those things, it's not that they misrepresent the expense, but they're expenses that we couldn't have possibly budgeted for, I don't think, or we didn't. And then the last piece just shows you the missed post that was made, which caused the deficit not to show in the reports. So you can see the money went in and out. This was actually from the town vote of Articles 11, 12, and 13, where the money was moved into, I believe it was Tracy Hall, the highway garage, and the fire department. So there was, even though it shows that as an expense, it was not an expense. It's just the way the report showed, because the correction wasn't made in the same period. So I just didn't want people to be alarmed and thinking, oh my gosh, we have $1 million in expenses. Where did this come from? It was a mispost to a wrong account.
Wow.
So I don't know if anybody has any questions on this piece.
Any questions? I'm seeing none.
I don't know if this helps you or not.
I think so.
This is very helpful.
It's very
Yes.
helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barry, for being here at 8 o'clock and talking through that. I think that'll set us on the right path here going forward to talk about fiscal year 27 budget. So with that, if Lily is still there and willing, I think we could go to that presentation. Hi, Lily. And Marcia, if you are able to maneuver, as you'll notice, as we added columns and data, this has gotten very small. So it is hard to read this all at one time, and we'll probably have to do a toggling job here to be able to read this on the big screen.
Okay,
Page do you want me to be on, Brenna?
it's 18, I believe, the packet.
I believe 18 is where the clerk starts.
Does BOA and statutory meetings also fall under your stuff, or?
I'm going to talk about all this.
Awesome.
Can I?
You've already answered some of the questions about them previously, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there are 3 separate budgets for my office. One, the first one we can talk about, going down in order, is the Board of Civil Authority and Board of Abatement budget. This is a very minor budget in the grand scheme of things. The changes that you'll notice are that I took away the justice stipend and the associated taxes. We do not pay our justices of the peace or our Board of Civil Authority or Board of Abatement members. Some towns do, some towns don't. We have chosen not to, and so far no one has requested to be paid. The changes there, I took the postage down a little bit. Board of Civil Authority and Board of Abatement require all decisions to be sent by certified mail. I confirmed when we had our trainings this year that you can't actually email someone, you have to actually certify mail the decisions. So it's always kind of a crapshoot as to how many cases we'll see. This one was as many members of the select board know, a high case number year because we had the reappraisal. And then I increased the dues meetings and education line by $50, just in case VLCT wants to run additional trainings. They tend to cost between $10 and $30 per person to attend. And we pay for the Board of Civil Authority and Board of Abatement members. Questions on that?
Sorry, dues meeting education looks like it's at $50.
It's at $100.
Up to 100. Okay,
Yes, I'm going big next year.
okay. I hear.
So when we all went to the training for the BCA, that must have been more than $100, a bunch of us.
I can't remember if it was free for select board or other people who are covered by VLCT and then JPs had to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
It's covered by our membership.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Paid by the town.
Okay, so can I go on to stats meetings? So that stands for statutory meetings, but could otherwise be known as elections. This is a cyclical budget. Every other year, we have 3 elections in a fiscal year. This fiscal year, we had 1 election. Next fiscal year, we have 3 elections. So my budget line items have gone up accordingly. Although I go back through many years of data to look at this, it's always kind of a crapshoot because it depends on how election law is going to change over the next 18 months. And there's not a whole lot that I can do about that. So best guess for the general election, November 2026, the state will mail ballots to all registered voters. If they decide not to do that, you know, we're going to be in for a lot more postage. Things I took out this year. I removed the poll worker stipends. We have a lot of volunteers. I see no need to pay them. Barry was kind enough to add in an election day expenses line item, which we haven't had before, and that is to allow me to feed my poll workers. They seem to be happy with meals as opposed to getting an hourly wage. My poll workers do 3 4-hour shifts from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So the first shift gets breakfast, the second shift we order Boloco for lunch, and the third shift and all my counters get pizza.
But it looks like in 24 you did have it.
I'm not sure. I don't think we did. I think Barry added this in fresh.
I remember food.
It looks like.
In 24,
$1,000?
it's in 24, it said you spent 171.
Yeah, I don't know, $1,000 budget.
Not that it matters, but
So
I remember pizza.
there was pizza, but it came out of a different line item. It was upsetting. So
I see.
now it's in the correct place. And then I took out the voting machine and voting machine maintenance agreement lines because the state pays for all of that now.
Oh, good.
Yep. Questions? Again, best guess, not a lot I can do. Election law is beyond my control, unfortunately. Okay, so
Hang on a
Voting
minute.
machine program.
Yes, see.
so we pay a company called LHS Associates to program the tabulator for our March town meeting.
Got it.
The state pays for programming for the state and federal elections.
So we're noticing that Barry had her hand up. Is it still up? Barry, do you have a question?
I just wanted to comment, you know, with Matt's question about seeing that there was money in that budget. We renamed a line item. This is what's challenging. We've had these conversations before when you're trying to show several years using the same chart of accounts and to get all the actual information in there. So this is the election day expenses is new language for an account that existed. This just makes it clearer as to what those expenses were for. Does that make sense? Is that, I don't know if Lily, if that helps you or not to
Yes, thank you.
explain why it showed up in prior years.
Yep.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, let's go to the next.
Okay, so the next is my main budget for my office. I hate to come back to the wage thing. Sorry, but I would like to come before you and ask for a 2-step wage increase for next year, which would take me, let's see, it would take me from step N this year or in 2026 to a step P in March of 2027. It's under a $500 increase. And at that point, I will have achieved both my certified municipal clerk designation and my certified Vermont clerk designation. As you may remember, when I became clerk, I had 0 experience. My salary was reduced accordingly compared to what Bonnie was making. And I think this is a good recognition of the work that I've put into learning to be a competent and well-educated clerk. If you would agree to that, that would go into effect in March of 2027. Like I said, I would have 4 months in that budget cycle at that level, and it would be under $500. I admit that I have a PhD and I've stared at my salary line item for hours over the course of the last several weeks, and I cannot quite work out Barry's fantastic spreadsheet of salary changes. So I can't give you an exact dollar amount, but I'm sure that Barry can. If you ask her to do that.
Yep.
Worst case would be $500. All right. Apart from that, the only other major increase is in training. That's doubled from last year because my new assistant wants to be members of all the clerk associations and wants to attend trainings, which is best practices. I would encourage her to do that.
Training line. I'm trying to-
That is way down at the bottom. It's going from 3,300 this year to 6,600 next year.
Is it on the screen? I think
Yeah.
it's,
But it's not, oh, education.
Yeah,
Dues,
meetings,
education.
education.
okay.
So we each belong to the Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, the New England Association of City and Town Clerks, and the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. Each one of those runs a conference once a year, which we go to. In addition, I attend the New England Municipal Clerks Institute and Academy. I'm on my 3rd of 3 years there. I will graduate this summer. Very exciting. And I'm hoping that Megan will start next summer in 2027.
That's good. Questions for Lily?
Does your wage increase, is that reflected in your 27 request or?
It is not, it would be 84,720.
Okay, that's what you meant by. the-
Yes.
And then I had a question about that, like, obviously the health insurance jumped a lot.
So the first part of this whole budget is given to me by Barry. So I can't tell you where she got her predictors from. You wanna?
Want to ask Barry?
So
I don't
I
know.
can give you some insight into that if you'd like.
That'd be
So
great.
we look at the bills, we look at the current cost, and then we increase it based on the information we get from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. That's kind of a very basic guideline. It's not the same all the time because sometimes there's unfilled positions. So we have to decide, are we going to assume that they're going to be a family and need the maximum, that can be offered, or so that it's the consistent pieces. We try to use what we know, take what Blue Cross and Blue Shield tells us to expect for an increase, and then build that in.
It's a shocking amount. Insurance.
That's
Is that
a lot
for
like,
two
what is
people?
it? It's 1.5. What's your assistant is
She's 32 hours a week.
Marcia?
And Brennan, can you say something about how the cost of living bump works for everybody? Is that in this?
The COLA?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
The COLA.
so on the 1st of July every year, we have a COLA adjustment that is, it's basically based on a rolling average of the, what is it, Barry, the consumer price? I can't remember. It's always
CPI, the Consumer Price Index.
Yeah, so it's always been, in my tenure at least, my 3 years here, between 3.5% and 4%. It's a 5-year rolling average. So every employee at that point in time basically sees that increase, and then they start the year at a higher rate than they ended the year.
My question is, how does that marry with what's voted?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question. The wage chart that's used for employees is what we've basically built all of the wage scales on that you're seeing in the budget. So I guess the voters are seeing that as part of the total budget and voting for that.
That was my question. The COLA is folded into that
Yes,
amount of money that's in the budget.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
My understanding is that factors into the 7.8% increase in, like, for Lily's example, like for her wage increase. Part of that is COLA. Is that right?
So July 1st, the COLA increase goes into effect, and then that's my new wage until March town meeting, when I get a step increase for having served another year.
Anniversary date.
Yes,
But that COLA was voted the year before.
yes.
Okay, I noticed Tricia Spellman has a question.
Hi, thanks. Just to follow up on the health insurance question, I think Barry, you mentioned costs, but did you mean premiums? I assume it's the premium costs that's showing up here, not actual healthcare costs.
It's the premium cost to the town because depending on which policy an employee selects will determine what their deduction is out of their pay for the cost of that policy.
And it's specific to those individuals? That seems kind of
Yes,
weird to show it
yes.
that way. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions?
One last. It looks like you're asking for less money in your designated fund for equipment. Got everything you need?
So my understanding is that the designated fund will roll year to year,
Yeah, that's
right? So right now I need to buy a new map cabinet. That's the fiscal year 26, $8,650. And then I'm going to start building up because in the next 10 years or so, I'm going to need a new set of rolling shelves to continue storing land record books. So.
Right, thinking ahead. Good. Other questions? Okay, guess we could move on.
Can I get a consensus on whether I can ask for an increased step? Or is that something you'll discuss at a future budget meeting?
Probably future, but I don't imagine there'll be much resistance, just as a preview.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now I guess we'll move on to a presentation by the Board of Listers.
Okay. Based on the agenda item earlier, we prepared a new budget document, which is not what's in the document in front of you. So if we could refer to that instead, that would be the one we want to refer to.
Can we see it somewhere?
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet. It was the last page of what we submitted.
7.
We asked whether we should send this in, and it was decided that we should do it this way. And that's what we did. So it changes the plan that we came up with. And what would you, I mean, if everybody looked at this, do you have?
So what changed? Can you just talk about it?
Sure. Certainly the wage line item has changed. And if there is a reclassification of the 22,000 to the wage line item, that would bring it up to 53.5. So then the 58.2 is in line with that. And the number of hours times an average rate was what we've projected. The child care tax, the FICA, Medicare are a function off of those wage line items. So those would change accordingly. They did. Contracted services is now at 4,000. That we felt comfortable keeping as the possibility for some consulting work on anything we need to have help with would be available. Software maintenance, I don't believe that changed. I'd actually have to take a quick check. 16,250. So 12,265. That didn't change.
When you say change, you mean from what was in the.
What was in the columns?
Okay.
But it went up 10,000 from 25.
Yeah, between 25 and 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between 25 and 26 was the approval that we got for this year to install the upgraded AssessPro software. Now, we'll be talking hopefully next meeting about that moving forward, but the annual amount is reduced because there's additional training costs and one-time fees for the transition of the data. So that's that piece. The remaining items are just small changes, small amounts, unless somebody has a particular question on them. They're not the big picture. They're not the big ticket items in the budget. The designated fund, we've left it, but I don't think we're talking that tonight. I think you're just talking operating tonight.
Cheryl, I'd like to add one comment to what you have just shared with the board, and that is that our original request showed an increase of 5.99%, and this revised budget, we're at 4.5% increase over last year. So this is actually asking for less money than we had originally projected.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sure. Thank you, Pam, for adding to that. Questions for listeners, Marcia?
So you've made some massive jumps from 4,500 to up to 58,200, and next year we don't have a reappraisal. So is the 58,200 based on the fact that you're going to pay yourself for taking the courses that are required by the state? What justifies $58,200?
Getting a grand list prepared for another year, processing property transfers, processing current use, handling 3 software packages, the ordinary work of the lister's office. Absolutely, by 3 listers.
And that's a lot harder than it used to be. Or
Harder?
Is it harder? Is it more difficult than it used to be? I'm just having a hard time understanding why a part-time official needs $58,200 to do something they used to do for $4,500.
No, we didn't.
I know it is.
Well, we did and we didn't. I mean, we were the final voice on decisions that an assessor was putting in front of us, who was processing property transfers and handling current use and the things that we don't need to pay somebody $80 to do. So with that said, what we're doing is we're saying, yeah, we can do that work. We're capable and qualified to do that work.
The state hasn't qualified me to be an assessor. So,
We're qualified to do the work.
but the state has now,
It doesn't matter what the state is qualifying us or not. We are elected listers to perform the duties that we're required to do and create a grand list every year. And in order to do that, we are qualified to go from the last one to the next one and get that done on time, statutorily.
so we
Let's let
should,
Marcia finish what she
we
was going to
should-
say, though.
thank you. We should ignore the state and we should just give you the 58,200 because you think that you can do what an assessor did.
I don't know that that's at all part of what this budget represents. I wouldn't agree with that. What I would tell you is, yes, the hours of training to do our training that's required by statute, those hours are within that number because we will be doing the educational work that we are required to do. Now, there's half of that that will occur under the current remaining year. And then there's half that will fall into the next fiscal year. And if there's a new lister in FY27, they'll have to start all over and do the 48 hours. So it's a forecast, like anybody's budget. This is a forecast of what will be needed to do the responsibilities of the elected officials of the lister's office.
So is there an expense to take the training? I mean, there's
Not
there are
just the hours. To my knowledge, these are online. They will be done that way, and there's no cost to the town to do these.
Okay.
To go somewhere and.
Right. Okay. So.
If I might add to that discussion,
Go ahead. Yep, sorry.
the state tells us when these courses will be held. We do not get to say, oh, well, I'm available, next Tuesday. I'll just schedule some time to take that course. We have to take these courses when they are offered. And so many of them are offered on Wednesdays. We are not typically in the office on Wednesdays, so it would be additional time to our weekly schedule if there's a course that's offered on a day that we're not typically in the office. But I also want to point out that if you add the 31.5 from FY '26 to the 25,000 that was budgeted for contracted services, that's $56,500. And if you carry that over to fiscal year '27, we're at 62.2. So there is an increase, but we have reduced the amount that would be paid out to a contract assessor because we're going to assume a lot of those duties that we are now trained to do, and we will be getting additional training. So we will be qualified to do the work, much of the work that we would have to pay somebody $75 to $100 an hour to do. Why would we do that when we can do it for so much less?
Okay, thank you. I think Priscilla, you had a comment in that
Yeah,
or a question.
going back to something you said earlier, for the last couple of years, you've had professional assessors working with you in the form of PRT to go to when you have questions, and you're not going to have those people around anymore. So it's natural that you guys, I think, would be spending more time without that.
Well, yes and no. I mean,
That's sort of like taking the 25,000 and adding it to 31.5.
right. And there's a lot of resources available to us through our district advisor and property valuation and review that provides us answers to many questions that we have that an assessor wouldn't have the answer either. They're specific to Norwich. These are changes that occur in the lives of the people that live in this town and make decisions to unenroll current use land. And those are things that we handle. We did all the current use. KRT did none of it. And it takes time and it takes concentration of that work because it's now shifted to the VT-PI software. And that's where the state is requiring us to have those records handled. So everything is there, but we also have to have it in the other two software packages. So we make sure all three agree. We're reconciling those constantly. With that said, there's definitely a time where we may want a consultant to help us. That's just a thing we feel better about maintaining within the.
And that was a comment about the contracted services line.
Yeah.
Now, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a question. So Pam, I did see how you kind of collapsed in the fiscal year '26, line items of lister, office wages, and contracted services more basically into wages and without sort of, causing much addition to it. And that's appreciated. One thing I did notice on your packet that you submitted to us is that you have a history of being under budget. And I was wondering, I feel like we're kind of fumbling through transitioning a lister's office from being an inappropriately low stipend to trying to figure out like what is good compensation for this work that you're doing. And is the way that you're going to go about this that you'll just sort of see how many, like charge how many hours as you go forth, like this coming year where it's not a reassessment year, you'll charge the number of hours that you're doing work. And if it turns out to be a lot lower because you have a lot less to do, I'm assuming that you will be under budget.
Yes.
That you're not just gonna come in and hang out. I don't mean to sound rude saying this, but I think that it's like, we're not committing to, this is an estimate for how much time you're going to take. And it's very possible that the amount of time that you're going to take is going to be a lot less because of the difference of the job this year or 2027 versus the one that you're currently went through.
So yes, Matt, and the goal is we live in Norwich and we are taxpayers and we don't wish to overspend a budget. It has never been our intent, as we provided in the documentation. We've turned back a lot of money over the last 10 years. That said, there is a small amount of disturbance in the people of Norwich from the reappraisal work who are going to come forward in the next year, and they're going to grieve that assessment that they got this last year. There are people we already know about that are coming forward, and we don't know what we don't know. And that is, will there be others in groups that may come forward and surprise us with unanticipated grievances and what have you? Again, we'll do our best, but I will be the first one to come to you as the select board and say, things have changed from what the plan was. And I'm not offended by your comment. We do provide office hours for drop-in people on Thursdays. That is a staffing of that office that needs to be done. And that is the time in which we as listers can gather and do administrative work on behalf of this town. We are not in there making any decisions. When we have a meeting, we bring any of that to our meetings, we put it on the agenda, and we make decisions in public meetings, publicly warned meetings. That said, the work that gets done in there, property transfers and current use work, gets done by us during those hours and any non-office hours. A lot of times you're better off with another day to get in and get the work done because you're not interrupted. Just again, a plan that we've come up with, who's going to be putting in the hours, who's going to, not be putting in as many hours with the three of us, the way it's made up, and the projection for a reasonable year. If it's looking unreasonable, we will come to the select board and let you know that. But again, it's hopeful we can work within this new breakdown and make it work.
Okay, and notice Pam has her hand up.
I have one more.
Oh, okay.
Just the software maintenance update went from fiscal year actual, $6,500 in 25 to budgeted, $16,000 in 26 and now 12 and 27. Is it like a giant license fee or?
So this was the budget request last year for the listers to move to this new version of Assess Pro and get updated after 12 years of using kind of a clunky version. So we put that through last year and got the permission, which we're going to be doing soon, to upgrade that software. And that is including an additional $4,000 in training and one-time transition fee for that data that's in our system currently to be transferred over to the new version. So that's why it drops down in 27 to the 12,265, because that'll be the support and license cost in 27.
Okay, but that's still twice as much as what you paid in 25. So is it just that it's a much more expensive software?
Totally. Definitely a much more robust and, using a portal, using a cloud service and all of that, not having to come in and sit at a machine and work off the server will have additional capabilities. So our laptops, we'll be able to access it through our laptops that we use when we're not in the office.
Okay.
Other thing I would say is that we also pay NEMRIC our share of the grand list module. I think I'm correct when I say that we had always budgeted that as an annual expense, but from chatting with Barry, there's now going to be an allocation done at year end. Because it comes up in March, we're going to get 4 months, March, April, May, June. In 1 year, the remaining is going to be prepaid and go into the new year. So there's a transition going on of the expenses in 2026. But hopefully it'll all come down to a 12-month amount for the NEMRIC piece in that software maintenance update figure that's there. So that's buried in there at about $500.
Okay, and Pam, Pam's had her,
Pam might have an additional.
I thought she might want to say something additionally.
Yeah, Cheryl
Yeah,
covered a
yeah.
lot of the things that I was hoping that she would cover, but I just want to bring us back to a comment that's been made several times during these budget discussions, and that is that the departments know what they need to do their job. And so this is what the listers have put together because this is what we think we need to do our job. So I'm really hopeful that the board will respect that. And understand that, these are guesstimates, but they're the best guesstimate we can come up with, looking out into the future. As you know, last year, the 31.5 was not nearly enough because no one could anticipate that this whole process would slide well into fiscal year 26. So we're doing our best to come up with these estimates. And as Cheryl said, if we find that we've miscalculated something that we couldn't foresee, then we'll come back to you.
All right, thank you, Pam. Okay, let's see, Kimo?
Yeah, I do want to comment that the wages should be seen in light of, there are no benefits, but the listers are paying benefits, and their benefits are going up as fast as other people's benefits. They have to cover themselves.
Mhm.
So
Right.
12% increase has to be
Consider.
considered.
Okay. Marcia, did you have a question or comment?
I had a question for Brennan and then a question about a line item here. Brennan, given that we know that there's some legal expenses ahead of us, I'm just wondering what should we be thinking about in terms of a legal services line item here?
That's specific to
It's specific to
the
these
listers?
problems.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, or to the reappraisal. Are you still there, Brennan?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to think of how to answer that. I guess
Okay.
this is for fiscal year 27, so that's going to be July 1st and onward. I can't predict any legal services for the lister's office. I assume that at that point, all of the reappraisal court cases will be settled, but that's in this year with no money budgeted there. So if you're asking, do I think there should be a legal service amount that's put into the lister's office? I don't know how I could predict that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then my question was, why would mileage go up over 3 times to 750?
Well, again, it's an estimate of the rate that may change, which, is always out there. We estimated to be doing inspections. There's probably 120 open building permits as of last week when we reviewed the work that needs to be done. And we expect to be going around town quite a bit, going to building permit locations and handling that. The KRT did all of that work without us having to do as much of it in the prior year. And so that's a lot of what we expect to be doing. Can we call up and say to somebody, is your shed done? Did you build that shed you said? Yes. Okay, well, we'll come out, take a look at it, make sure it agrees with the permit, take a picture of it for the records, and then, come back, or plan to go to 5 or 6 of them at a time. But that's the main reason. I think we put our attendance at Town Fair and the VALA annual meeting in there for mileage to get to that and back. Typically one person goes, but if we do go together, it's still one charge.
Madam Chair. Madam
Yes,
Chair.
Pam. Yes, go ahead,
I'd like to speak to the issue of the legal fees. I don't know, Mary, I know you were on the board when Herb Durfee was the town manager, and he made the decision to take legal services out of all of the departments and put it under administration. So there's just one fee, and everything went through the town manager's budget for legal services. And that included any challenges that went to the Superior Court or to the state hearing officer for any challenges to the BCA decisions. So I would not think that the reappraisal fund would be tapped for those kinds of expenses, that we would follow the tradition and stay with the legal services line item that's in the town manager's budget for those expenses.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Other questions?
I think just to follow up to that point, the most recent one that went to the court cases was a couple of years back. Well, yeah, and I believe those legal expenses would be an example of where we expense those.
Right.
Because we had something to go along with that case. Okay. Other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You need a break or should we keep going?
Yeah.
I'd like, or you'd like to keep going if we can finish early.
Yeah, finishing early would be good. Maybe we'll just. Let's just keep going. Okay, so the next
Have a
item.
cookie.
I'll have one at the end. Thank you. Our next item is the opioid fund.
Hey, Mary,
Brennan, would you like to
Yeah, I just wanted to close the budget topic.
close the budget thing? Okay.
If that's okay.
Sure.
So as I mentioned, so we will have a condensed amount of time to get any updates into another draft of a budget for the 17th. So I guess I'm just trying to get a gauge from the board. Should we just plan to re-show what has been presented today, which I think we're calling the 1125 draft? Are there any specific changes that Barry should be incorporating into another draft that we would want to update before we come back together in a week?
I didn't see any changes.
Just the listers bit, which.
Oh, good point.
So we put,
Right.
Yeah, Lily
Just
and
the
the
listers.
listers both have, I
Yeah,
guess, requested changes. So I guess the question to expedite the process is, do you want a week to think about all of that and then we'll come back on the 17th and make all changes at that point? Or are there anything tonight that we would agree needs to get updated for the next draft?
I think that if the ministers had a chance to put in their draft budget into this, and if what they submitted most recently to us, is their, draft budget, like it should go into this now. So we can look at this, we can make changes to it, but like, I'd like to see how it affects our whole number. So I would support that. I'd support, like, if this makes it easier and less updates, talking about Lily's request for a pay raise, I'd entertain that now, just because if we're all secretly in favor of it, then like,
why
let's
not?
just put it in there.
Exactly.
Put it in the budget.
Because it's just one less thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
So we all okay with Lily's raise,
But certainly
right?
put it in the
Okay,
budget.
put it in the budget, making that change, and also the listers.
If we're all in favor of
Well,
it.
that's what I'm asking you. So
I'm all in
Yes.
favor.
yeah, for both of those, right?
Mhm.
Any objections or differences of opinion?
Well, it sounded to me like she hasn't actually had she's still in the process of getting her certification or whatever it is. I looked at other people's increases, and 7.83 seems to be what a lot of people have. So I think she's kind of trying to get herself to a place that she thinks she should be. I'm not terribly comfortable with it. It's not about what she's doing. It's just process. But leave it in for now.
Yeah, put it
Okay.
in the budget, then we'll consider it.
I'll make a final decision. Okay, so it sounds like both those changes should be part of it.
And I
Okay,
have a question. We're going to talk about some things like, I think it was lasers, things like that were mentioned.
Lasers?
Was it lasers?
Oh, you mean tasers?
Tasers.
Oh, tasers.
Lasers would be much more cool.
We're just having a discussion about lasers today.
Okay, so tasers for the police
Yeah,
department?
is that something that we should wait on, or should that be in there right now?
when did that?
I'd much
topic
rather,
ever come up?
you were maybe visiting grandbabies. Or
That might have been the meeting.
I don't
where-
think you were here for that.
I would have been 2 weeks ago.
It was
That's
at
when
the
the
first
police chief-
budget
Okay, I
meeting.
was gone for that one.
Presented.
I think that's a worthy of discussion next time.
That it should be on the agenda.
But should it be
Incorporated.
incorporated sometime right now?
How much of an increase was that?
I don't remember.
I don't
Do you-
think we have a definitive number on that, if I recall. I think it was a discussion that had come up in the pre-budget work that we were doing with department heads. So we could certainly have a number for the next meeting, which would be, okay, if you wanted to support that in the budget, we could do that, and this would be the amount. I guess, again, as Matt said, I think we're just trying to make this as expedited as we can. So if there are things tonight that were like the listers with a budget that they've proposed, I don't think we want to, if we're ready to move that into the template that we have for the full budget, we should do that. And I think the same.
Right, and I
with
think we
Lily's
did
with
agree on
this.
that, and also the town clerk's salary.
So
So
we
the-
can make those two changes for sure, and everything else I think will remain the same as what you've seen tonight, and then be ready to discuss what else might change before a final budget would be created.
Okay.
And,
Oh,
and I
Marcia?
think the best way to do this, if I may, is to have a consensus vote at some point. Like if somebody says, well, I think we should have tasers added and they're going to cost $5,000. Like I think the most expedited way to do that might be to move that.
Right, to have a motion for
Yeah,
anything
at
additional.
least to know that we have three of the five, as a majority that support doing that. And then if we had that kind of set up as a system, we could probably bang through this somewhat quickly if there are going to be some changes.
Are there likely to be items besides tasers that people have in mind to add or subtract or anything?
Yeah.
I wanted some time just to go through the FY 24-25 actuals and see how they reflect like closely to the 27.
Okay.
Like, so I'm not
A
sure.
little time, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Marcia?
It would be moving quickly, and I don't even know if we can do this, but if it was possible to investigate the cost of speed sign ticketing, I would like to include that in the budget.
Speed sign.
Like camera
You
ticket.
know, you can get a ticket from a camera.
Is that legal? Is that what was not legal?
I thought,
I don't
thought
believe
read
that-
somewhere that is not legal.
I don't think that's legal in Vermont. I know some states,
Yeah.
I've gotten one in California many years ago when I lived there, but I've never seen those employed in a Vermont town.
We just inquire. I mean, they may be expensive or something. I don't know. That I've seen them in Massachusetts and places.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
the
think they're
legality
legal.
is-
I don't think
Oh,
they're
I know,
legal in
I know.
Vermont, but we can ask that question of
You
the
could
chief.
check,
He
I
would,
guess.
he would know.
Okay,
Because if they are, I'd be very interested in seeing if we could do something.
from all over. Well, that may be a very comprehensive topic of speed control is on a lot of levels, and I think that one is going to take some time to put together. But the public will help nudge us along in that one, I think. All right, anything else on, Kimo?
Just one other thing, we have a designated fund for Tracy Hall. Or
Yes,
that line, it's a reserve fund, so where does that show up on, or does it not? There's a line item here that's blank.
What page are you on?
what page are you looking at?
23
All right,
of 110. Anyway, does that show up somewhere in a budget, or should it?
there is a Tracy
Yeah,
Hall.
all the designated funds
fund.
are in the
Is
budget.
that designated or reserved? Is that one of the ones to be sorted out?
Well,
It's designated. Yeah.
I think that was,
Designated.
I think that might have been created by voters, so we would call that a
Okay.
reserve, I guess.
And I also noticed Barry has her hand up. Barry?
Well, the Tracy Hall Fund, most of the numbers that you see in the budget and Almost all of them say designated fund. That's something we're going to sort out and change the names accordingly. That comes from the capital budget. And in that capital budget, there isn't anything in the Tracy Hall Fund. What's fed that fund over the past couple of years has been an article. That's why there's nothing there in the budget for that particular fund.
That's what I thought. So,
Make an article.
yeah, thanks.
And I think historically that fund has been really, really low. We were not thinking ahead to renovating Tracy Hall.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
No,
It's
that's
pretty
good.
good stuff from the ARPA funds.
That answers my question. That's
Okay,
what I
good.
assumed.
all right. Okay, are we good? Good on our budget process then? Okay, so let's move on to the opioid fund. Brennan, do you want to speak to the, what we found out about accounting for it?
Yeah, actually, I think Barry
Sort of gone over it.
kind of covered that
We kind of
initially.
covered it.
Yeah, so that was our last question, as I mentioned in the memo. So we've created a new fund, that's Fund 56. We've moved all of the monies that we collected in fiscal year 25 and thus far in 26 into that fund. It sounds like we have gotten guidance from VLCT that says we're able just to make an accounting move and move the monies that came in 24, which is $13,229.36. So if the board is so willing, I think it would be nice to have all of that kind of moved, and we would want to do that before the audit is closed, obviously. So I think a motion tonight to that effect would cover that piece. And then the second part of that topic, I think, was some discussion about future uses of the funds now that we have our designated fund and we know how much money is there.
Okay, I have some things to say about how we might use it, but I'm wondering if the board would like, if someone would like to move to shift those, the 13,229.36. Okay,
Let's see, I move. Just looking for the language in here. I move to transfer from the general fund to the new designated opioid fund via a journal entry. The fiscal year 24 revenue estimated to be $13,229.36.
and is there a second?
Second,
Okay. And any further discussion? Okay, well, that's, in that case, let's vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chemo?
yes.
Priscilla?
Yeah.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that took care of that piece. I was looking over the schedule of allowed uses and comparing it to additional information from our police chief and from Matt Herbert about the different agencies that might be appropriate for us to, send some funds. And what I was thinking is that maybe it would be a good idea, for instance, if we wanted to support our MS department, and I think they talked about kits. Could we ask how many kits might be estimated to be used in a year, since some of the contents might have an expiration date since it's medication? So I think that would be a smaller, amount to go in that direction, but it'd be sort of nice to know what the actual need is there. And then our other agencies, it could be larger amounts, but I'd sort of like to know at the end how they're spent. So I think the other agencies mentioned were Upper Valley Turning Point, which would be direct services and a variety of free naloxone distribution outreach. The Good Neighbor Health Clinic might be, let's see, they also offer the naloxone snacks, warm items of clothing. And also the police department had recommended the healthcare rehabilitative services, which is sort of more comprehensive and long-term services. So we've got these different agencies that can offer some services. And I think we also have heard in our discussion of both the opioid and the homeless population that like people, they're interrelated problems. So people who might need it might be in Norwich and then they might kind of be somewhere else. And then people who can help them might be in a third location. But I think we can, you know, I think we can spend this wisely, but I'd kind of like to maybe have a query to the different agencies and just say, well, how would you spend some dollars if we could, you know, shift some your way? Marcia?
Yeah, the one that sort of intrigued me was if we're sending a lot of people down, I think it was to Springfield, that might be the one that you were referring to up here. I can't remember.
The police recommended one or?
The police said that when they have to transfer people, they send them to that place and it's in Springfield. And
Okay,
it seemed to me, if we're sending people regularly, we should be supporting that place. So I'd like to know a lot about what they're doing.
okay, so that would be a query to the police department?
Yeah.
Okay, do people agree with this approach of trying to, go ahead, Kimo?
Yeah, I don't disagree with it. I think
Yeah.
I'm impressed with what you're saying.
Okay,
Some of us gave Brennan names and recommendations of people to talk to. I thought
Yes.
there was a small
Yeah.
committee of people that I guess I'd like to get recommendations from as well.
Yeah,
They're much more
and-
qualified than I am to
and-
make a,
and I think at least one of them, I believe Brennan followed through with one of them. Can you speak to
Mhm.
that, Brennan? That I think Kimo had a recommendation for someone who,
I emailed two of the contacts that Chemo had provided and gave them a request to have or create some kind of a document that we could have for that packet. That was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago. I didn't hear any response back at all, Chemo, from either of them.
did you follow up further or just let it go?
No, I didn't.
Perhaps you could do that, because I've talked to them a couple of times. They seem very interested. But also there were public health people and police and town nurse and thing, I think
yeah,
that were.
the community nurse said she would prefer that our EMS and police department speak to this. She
Yeah.
said she didn't want to weigh in. And then I think we had your 2
Yeah.
referrals.
Yeah,
And then Matt Herbert, who's sort of the head of our EMS, came in and spoke at length.
yeah.
And the police chief spoke also. So we've got some opportunities. Perhaps maybe you want to follow up with your friend and say, well,
Sure. Can do.
can you call a town manager? Maybe you could help make that connection
Yeah.
and see if it's, you know, it's still something where your contacts want to help.
Mhm.
I'm not saying shut them out, but I'm saying we
Yeah.
do have sort of organizations that are already doing the work. So that's something to follow up on too.
Yeah. that's
Okay.
good.
We don't have to decide this in the
No.
context of the budget.
No, it has nothing to do with budget. We
No.
don't have to decide it tonight. We could think of, you know, what the questions would be for the different agencies and sort of do that, not even for the next meeting, but maybe in January. You know, we don't have to do this right away. But I don't feel comfortable just saying, well, this agency is going to get X and not knowing how they would use the money.
Mhm.
You know, I'd like just like to know what the approach is or what the need is, and also just as feedback, how are we helping? You know, how is Norwich helping with this problem? So I think there's an extra step.
But I do feel a responsibility if we're overtly asking and sending people somewhere. I feel
Right.
responsible.
Okay, so that's duly noted. Okay, and that was transportation to Springfield, right?
Yeah. To
Okay.
some sort of organization, I can't remember.
And then I believe our EMS already, our EMS department probably already has kits, right? But it would be good to fund them or?
I think what he was talking about, so we get a lot of stuff that's free to build our kits.
Mhm.
And I think that Matt was talking about building out those kits with like more stuff.
Oh,
you can
okay.
Get for free. But I don't think the dollar amount is going to be
Very
very
high.
large at all.
Right.
But I agree that like we should fund that as sort of first priority, even if it's like
exactly.
$100 or $200 or whatever.
Yes,
And then the majority of the funds, that it looks like we got about like 32,000 or
Yeah,
almost to
we do.
33,000
Yeah.
once we collect everything. I like the idea of vetting, a couple of good charities and then deciding sort of how much to give to each one.
okay, all right. So do we need to say anything more on that one? Okay. So let's move on to town manager report.
Andrew,
I think he's looking at something.
I was talking.
Oh,
Sorry.
were you
Yeah, I
saying
was
something?
reading and not unmuting. I was saying I'll just in typical fashion kind of walk through this and hit any highlights that I think might be of interest. I'll start with the planning department. So I had mentioned in the memo that the master plan grant had been submitted to VCDP. Happy to say at noon, I got a message from VCDP stating that they had awarded the town the planning grant. So that's good news. I let Stephen and Pam and Jan know about that. And when Stephen returns from his vacation, I'm sure we will start working on the acceptance documents for that right away. So good news there. DPW, I guess I just wanted to mention the winter season has begun because folks might not have noticed that coming in today. We're off to a rousing start here with a couple big snowstorms in early December. I would just hope everyone can be patient and kind, realizing that we have a young crew right now. Some of the operators are inexperienced and still learning and getting their feet under them. I also just want to point out, which I think most folks that have lived here for a while are aware, that there is kind of a triage of road clearing after a storm or during a storm, right? So it's the bus routes, it's heavily trafficked, it's hills, and then kind of the class 3 road. So I know we got at least a couple calls from folks that were living kind of out in the outskirts on class 3 roads that were concerned or complaining that they hadn't seen the DPW crew yet. And I just want to make everybody aware that they are going to get there. It is a process of kind of priorities of which roads get done first. So I think most people understand that. But that will be a continuing element of their work here for the next several months, and they're doing a good job, I think. To go along with that, we did receive the new Freightliner plow truck, so that is now in service on the roads. I mentioned at the last meeting that we had hired a building and grounds technician, and I didn't list his name because he hadn't started yet. But David Furman is the gentleman's name, and he began work in early November. So he's a little over a month in right now and doing a nice job. I will also mention I had said that we had lost our equipment operator, and I think I even named Keith Waterman as the gentleman who had moved on to another town. He's come back. So that's great news and great timing. So he's one of the more experienced operators, and I guess I'll just say we're happy to have him back. So he will begin again Monday.
Does that put us fully staffed?
We're now fully staffed.
Wow. In the nick of time, all right.
Yeah, well, it comes and goes. So right now we can say we are fully staffed in the DPW. The FEMA grant, as you're aware, that had been ongoing here for about 2.5 years. Chris and Britta had been working on that jointly, and they have submitted all of the final closeout documents. So we will be getting a final reimbursement, probably a large check here at some point in the near future once that gets processed. But we've done everything on our end on time. So that's good. And then more good news on the grant front. We had this VTrans Highway Emergency Fund grant of about $80,000 that we had talked about a lot, and Chris was always optimistic that we would see that money. So it has officially been awarded at this point. So that is committed now. So that's nice. And then just skipping ahead there to the town manager's office, obviously spending a lot of time working with Barry on the budget, and that'll continue here for the next month or so. I did have a couple meetings in the last month with the Emerald Ash Borer management group, and we are trying to kind of finalize the plan for issuing an RFP for a contractor. They had, I think, kind of preemptively posted that we were going to really try to have this underway in January. And in thinking about the logistics of having people cutting down trees along the roadways while snow removal was occurring and all of the complexities and problems that could come with that, I think we've decided to push that back. So we're probably looking now at sometime in April for that to start, which in a way is, I think, a nice thing because it will give a little more time to do some more property owner outreach. So we're still working with that group and legal counsel to craft kind of a consent form of, if we come in and take a tree down in the right of way, would you like that tree to be left there? If not, we have to figure out how to remove that or in what way to remove it. The questions about trees that might be falling just on the outside of the right of way that we might be able to take down as part of this project. That would be kind of economies of scale savings for the property owner. So those are just a couple examples of some logistical stuff that we're trying to work through. And again, I'm hopeful that probably by early January we would at least have letters ready to go out to property owners that are going to be affected that we can issue through the volunteer group. The KLAP, which was the state tax department's grant to help us defend one of the cases by Great River Hydro, has been accepted. So I think that was just at the last meeting, or maybe it was in earlier in November. We had talked about applying for that. So that was awarded, and they're in contact with our counsel at SPNF. And then the other litigation question, I guess, is we do have a couple things pending right now that I feel like the board should be briefed on. And I would like to request that we hold an executive session at the next meeting on the 17th and invite our town council to provide us a couple updates on some of that. I won't go into any detail at all right now, but if people are agreeable, I think we would do that first thing, like at 6, right after the early parts of the agenda, close to 6:30, and probably spend no more than a half hour with council, just getting everybody up to speed on things that are going on. Does that seem agreeable?
I think it makes sense. Yeah. Timely.
Okay. Okay. Well, if that's the case, I'll lock that in with our attorney, and we'll plan to do that on the agenda. And I think that was all I had for my report.
Okay, thank you.
I had one question.
Go ahead.
What is the VTran grant that we got for 80 grand? What does that go to?
So that was for a major rainstorm. I think it was actually Dutton Hill where the rain washed out the road, and we had applied to the state for help in reimbursing. It's not FEMA by any means. It's just the state funds. So they have a pocket of money to help towns recover roads after an emergency like that.
Oh, nice. So it's not a forward-looking grant. It's a reimbursement kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, we've spent the money with the assumption that we would be reimbursed at some point if the grant was awarded, but it's taken quite a long time, and now it has been awarded.
Nice.
Small. Thanks. I was impressed with the plowing. And ask, if maybe you could ask Chris if they can attend to the crosswalks that the kids use in the mornings and afternoons, because they weren't plowed when the sidewalks were plowed. So I shoveled them, which was fine, if it's possible.
Okay,
Is
so
that the
you're
little
talking about
berm at the
the
side?
actual roadway where the crosswalks are painted in?
Yeah, they plowed the sidewalk and pushed the snow off into the crosswalk and into the other side. And so there was a
berm.
yeah, it was just, yeah, it wasn't plowed at all.
That's
So
completely-
it's fine. I mean, I managed.
Well, thank you
I
for
shoveled them all
taking
out.
the initiative, Chemo. I did see you with your shovel out there as I was leaving.
Oh,
so
you didn't.
good
Yeah.
job, above and beyond.
Yeah.
I will mention that to Chris. I think, as you saw today, we had a lot of snow coming down quickly, so it was difficult to keep up with, but I can mention that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
So,
I just want to say, when I read this report, I went, wow, so many good, wonderful things are happening. Just boom, boom, boom. It's like awesome. You know, most optimistic, best town manager report I can remember. Lots of good news.
all right.
That's because I had an extra half a month to put it together, Priscilla.
Why are these good things are happening?
2 months of work.
Is that how you get a grant?
It seems to be cyclical. I will say that. I've been here now. I think this is my 3-year anniversary today, and it seems like good things seem to occur, and then we'll get into a pattern where it's more negative news, and then they'll turn again. So I guess that's just life.
Well, happy anniversary.
And
Thank
I
you.
did want to just say thank you for clarifying the process and requirements for private work projects in the town right of ways. I think that's a very
Yeah, I didn't
positive.
mention that. That is
initiative.
long overdue. That will, I
Yeah.
think, really clarify what can be done, what can't be done, who pays for it, who's responsible, and again, when we get through the budget and we can focus on that a little bit more, I'd like to bring that back, hopefully in the early part of the next year.
All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Can I ask a question about the finance office overview that maybe, yes, are this chart here listed all, the way I'm reading it, it's all the currently on page 49, listed all the current outstanding delinquent taxes all the way back through 21. Is that right? So all of that is outstanding?
For the delinquent taxes.
I can, are you asking me?
You've now delved out a town manager report into
right.
finance director
Sorry.
report, but
Thank you,
but I think
Barry,
she
for
can
sticking
answer that.
around.
Okay, so then,
Extra credit here.
so if we go, now we're into department reports, but okay. And then Barry, well, it's fine, we drifted into that, but I think I heard Barry say she would answer your question. Yeah, Barry, you willing to answer the question?
Yeah, so that's simply a report that I can run out of NEMRIC that will tell me what the delinquent taxes are by year. So that's on the closed years, is technically we don't have delinquencies yet because we haven't reached the second payment. But what's important to note about that is that a year ago at this time, the amount of money that was owed was in excess of $315,000. So we've collected quite a bit in the past year.
Well done.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. And this is helpful to see. Thank you.
Other questions about the department reports?
A lot of hot dogs,
Yeah.
a lot of potato chips.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to approving the minutes.
I move to approve minutes for November 12, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Okay,
Hold
Priscilla,
on.
is there discussion?
Yeah, I don't know what page it is because it used to be page 37.
Okay,
It's sort of in the middle. Dear, wonder what's it? There's just a little typo.
is it mean?
Lean, yeah.
Second.
And L-I-E-N.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, did I do L-E-N?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's very lean and.
It's okay.
Thank you, that's all.
Okay. Oh, Cheryl?
Well, I shared it with a couple of members of the select board, but in the item about the certificate of deposit, I was never identified as town treasurer in that discussion, and I feel it's the most important hat to be.
True.
So,
Okay.
so I just talked about Cheryl Lindbergh. It should refer to town
Put town
treasurer.
treasurer.
Under number 4.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Change.
Okay.
Should we, I'm kind of amending the budget, I'm ending the minute. Should we go back and
Yes, do you,
amend our motion? Let's see,
I can amend the motion to say as amended.
if Chemo agrees,
If you
right?
agree, Kimo.
Second.
Okay, good. All right, so we've got the lien and the treasurer edits. Any other edits? Are we good? Are you ready to vote?
Yes,
Okay, Marcia, how do you vote?
yes.
Chemo?
Yes.
Stella?
Yeah.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay, now we've got many warrants. Would you like to move the warrants?
Warrants. I move to approve AP warrant number 1425 in the amount of $59,058.21 to be paid from the general fund. AP warrant number 1426 in the amount of $218,900.
Wait, whoa, $218,000.
$933 to be paid from the Highway Equipment Fund. AP warrant number 1427 in the amount of $1,575 to be paid from the Records Restoration Fund. AP warrant number 1428 in the amount of $165.50 to be paid from the general. AP warrant number 1429 in the amount of $191.42 to be paid from the general fund. AP warrant number 1430 in the amount of $441.52 to be paid from the general fund. And AP warrant number 1431 in the amount of $19,792.53 to be paid from the general fund.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
That one, Matt. Okay, is there discussion?
One little question, this is the second one.
For the
It's
second.
218,933 from the highway equipment. Is that our new Freightliner? Yeah.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it is. It might not be like, I would
Want to
think.
confirm that, Brennan?
I'm
Hi,
sorry,
Brennan.
the number again?
The warrant article for $218,933, is that for the Freightliner?
I believe it is. Yeah.
All right,
Thanks.
okay, any other questions? Okay, let's vote. How do you vote, Marcia?
Yes.
Chemo?
Yes.
Stella? Yep. Matt?
Did you want to say? Yes.
Okay. What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
This-
no,
I'm
no.
Postscript.
I was waiting for this. It was after this that I wanted to.
Sorry.
Oh,
After this.
Okay.
Not
Is it about the warrants?
the one that's your FYI.
oh, okay, so, but this one was unanimous, the
Yes.
new ones were unanimous, that's okay.
Yes. Okay, so can you explain?
Yes, I just, because I sign the checks and all, I was reviewing the warrant that is in your packet with FYI on it because it was off cycle and Mary, you approved it. But I just was extremely surprised by an expense of $638.77 for Halloween candy. I think that there was clearly some need, but I just don't understand why we would spend that kind of money on Halloween candy. There's fire department Halloween candy, there's town Halloween candy and what have you. And I just wanted to say that I thought if there was a couple $100 spent, that would have been sufficient, but it was just an overwhelming amount of money that I just had to make a comment as a resident of the town.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, receipt of correspondence, I believe we only had one, which was from Miller Nuttall, but then also a whole lot of people, 25 additional residents
Yeah.
that are advocating for more bike, pedestrian, and traffic calming infrastructure. And this was presented at our last meeting as public comment, and then the full remarks were in the correspondence. So could I have a motion to receive the correspondence
I move to receive all correspondence.
in a second?
Second,
Look at that one, that came up. Any discussion? Seeing none. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Emo?
yes.
Priscilla? Yeah. Nat?
Yep.
And I'm a yes. We did discuss our agenda in terms of the dates that are available to us in January, in case we need to think ahead after our December 17th meeting. And we've also discussed the need to have a 6:30 executive session to discuss the legal matters. Is there anything else we need to consider?
We want to be sure we bring up the listers wages.
Listers' wages as part of our discussion? Should it be part of our general discussion or just in the mix for what we want to?
I think we should make it.
Well, it has to be separate. You're talking about not their budget, but the issue of number 4 that we did.
Yes.
Okay, so make some kind of decision about that,
Which would include a warrant article.
which could include a warrant article, yes.
But I think we should make some decision.
I think that would be the kindness to everybody.
Madam Chair.
Cheryl, would you like to weigh in?
No, I just wanted to know if anything was, if you wanted us to submit anything further, is all I wanted to know.
Oh, I see further materials for that.
Anything else for this next meeting?
I see. I see. Does anyone require any other materials?
I think we've fully
Okay.
covered it.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, so we'll include that in this item. Anything else we can think of? We might want to keep this sort of simple if we can.
I did send you an email today, Mary, about an E&O,
Oh, yes.
and there is one other lister item coming to you all based on the recommendation from the town manager regarding the software contract. It should be brief, but it would be another item that
Right, and I think that would also come through the town manager's item. We're not going to ignore it, you know, it will, but it's more, it's
Yeah,
more
I'm gonna-
routine.
we've been asked to submit something, so we're gonna
Exactly.
get that over to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
so that
those
would-
two things, so there's an.
Yep. Okay, I think we're good on that. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
Oh, that's fast. Okay, let's vote. Marcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Emo?
yes.
Sheila?
Yep.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and our adjournment. Meeting 9:13.
Recording stopped.